Hey Pokemon fans, Real Mama Eagle here, also known as Key, and today I'm here to talk to you about why Genwunners suck and why they ruin all Pokemon discussion. Keep in mind, the intention of this video is not for me to be toxic, but to point out how toxic they can be. And I do want to clarify before we get started what my definition of a Genwunner is. A Genwunner to me is not someone who played Gen 1 and just happened to stop collecting the systems in the game just because they lost interest or couldn't get the systems, couldn't afford them for whatever reason. I am specifically referring to people that have played Gen 1 but refuse to grow and adapt with the series and have hated on every generation since Gen 1. Before we get into this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what Pokemon content you would like to see below. Let's get started. I think my biggest gripe about Genwunners is that they wear nostalgia glasses, but they never take them off. And I totally get it. I'm a 90s kid too. There's definitely something comforting about going back to when you were a kid, revisiting those things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those things are the best. And that's how Genwunners see them. If you ever really talk to a Genwunner about why they love Gen 1 so much, their main response, their main default is always, well, I grew up with it. It was first. It's the best in the series. My childhood. And they don't actually give reasons about the actual games as to why they like them. No substance behind that, just my childhood. And another thing that always gets me too on top of that is anytime you show any criticism of Gen 1, they take it as an attack on their childhood, like you're disrespecting them growing up playing Pokemon in some way, shape, or form, but they never want to talk about the actual flaws that the game does have. They don't want to talk about the broken movesets because of nostalgia. They don't want to talk about the limited amount of Pokemon types. They don't want to talk about the fact that some of the Pokemon designs we've overrated over the years. They don't want to talk about the fact that Kanto has a lot of boring parts about it and doesn't have a story. That nostalgia makes them believe that the game is high up on the spectrum when it's not. And it's really okay to say the first game in the series is not the best, but that's why it's so hard to talk to Genwunners. Another common thing that Genwunners do is they constantly slam any Pokemon designs that did not come from the first original 151. And there's a lot of examples as to why they either contradict themselves or they just don't want to give credit to anything new. They always talk about Pokemon like Vanillux, like Pokemon should not be based off food, but Execute is literally a pile of eggs. They always say Klefki exists, there should not be a Pokemon based on an inanimate object, but Magnemite and Voltorb exist. They also say that Pokemon should not be based off sludge, garbage. Garbodor gets all the blame, gets all the dragging, but look at Muck. Muck is literally a pile of sludge. So there's a lot of inconsistencies when in reality, a lot of later Pokemon do draw parallels to the 151 they love so much. I also think that Genwunners, when it comes to Pokemon designs, they don't want to acknowledge any new designs, but they overhype a lot of the originals. If you look at Gen 1's Pokedex, there's a lot of great designs in it. You have Charizard, you have Arcanine, you have Lapras, you have those phenomenal designs, but then you have ones that are too literal. You have Krabby that's literally just a crab. You have Goldeen and Seaking that are basically just fish, but nothing special about them. Seal is literally just a seal. A lot of the designs in Gen 1 are too literal, but if you talk to a Genwunner, they will say those designs are the greatest thing since sliced bread and they're 100% original, and that can be tough. The refusal to grow, adapt, and change is another issue with Genwunners big time. Whenever I have a conversation with a Genwunner about experiencing new generations or new Pokemon, I always get some sort of an attitude or some sort of refusal or some sort of pretentious response like they're too good to play the new games, and that's a big issue. And part of me feels as though a lot of Genwunners are afraid to play or embrace the new games because they're afraid that they'll like them so much that Gen 1 will no longer be their favorite, and for some reason that won't be true to their childhood. I'm not sure why a lot of them have that mentality, but it's kind of frustrating whenever a new generation drops or something's leaked or we're excited about anything Pokemon and a Genwunner goes on the timeline and they're like, well, it's not Gen 1, or these designs are bad, or Pokemon is running out of ideas. They'll say things to be negative. And I know me personally, I don't like to criticize shows, games, food, anything that I've never experienced for myself. And I see a lot of hate towards a lot of generations, specifically Gens 5 and on, from Genwunners, and they've never experienced it. It's like, how do you know something's bad if you never tried it? So there's a lot of weird and inconsistent opinions, and that's what I mean when I call Genwunners toxic, because they diss things they haven't played. They just want to be negative. They want to keep that mindset that every game has to stay pixelated, every game has to stay old school, and it can be very frustrating. I think my biggest pet peeve of all when it comes to a Genwunner is the fact that their loudness and stubbornness about refusing to move on from Gen 1 has enabled Pokemon and Game Freak to pander to them so much. Think about it. Gen 2 literally rides Kanto's coattails, even though I do think that there wasn't supposed to be a third generation, so that may be why they did that. Gen 4 basically made a Pokedex based off of evolutions, based off of Gen 1 Pokemon, mostly Gen 1 Pokemon that needed evolutions. Thank God Gen 5 didn't pander. That was a soft reboot we needed. Gen 6 basically forced a generation Generation 1 starter back into the game, and then Gen 7 gave us all these Gen 1 regional forms. So it's kind of pandered in every game in a sense, and that can be very frustrating, and only enables them to continue upholding that Gen 1 mindset. I would also say that they consistently scream for more Kanto remixes. If Fire Red, Leaf Green, Let's Go Pikachu, and Let's Go Eevee are not enough for us. We have enough content. We have enough content based on Kanto. We have enough regional forms for Kanto Pokemon. It's just over pandered, and Gen 1ers absolutely enable that. And it can be frustrating for a more tenured Pokemon player or a Pokemon player that loves things about all generations. The pandering is super, super frustrating, and you know, it may continue forever. Here's hoping it doesn't. But again, it gives Gen 1ers the fuel, and they're never gonna stop. Now, this unpopular opinion might get me dragged, but sometimes when you say things, you have to deal with the backlash, and I'm okay with that. I don't believe that Gen 1ers are actually Pokemon fans. I think they're just Gen 1 fans. I know some people may say, hey, Key, you're gatekeeping, and honestly, I'm not, because all I ever do is I try to convince people to play later generations they missed or skipped. I have so many friends that I've encouraged them to go on eBay and buy older copies, get into the generations, really experience them, really love them, so we can all have discussion. The reason I started this channel was to encourage positive and constructive Pokemon discussion. Let us know that there's positives and negatives about every generation. Pokemon we may have loved, they have positives, they have flaws, just to be constructive all around and be honest. And that is one thing Gen 1ers are unable to do, and that's why I made this video. If you do know a Gen 1er, do try to have some patience with them. They can't help themselves, that's just who they are. I know for me, I always try to educate first and foremost, but a lot of the reasons I listed today are why Gen 1ers are frustrating, and I do think that they ruin Pokemon culture, and I do think they are very toxic to Pokemon culture. And I really hope that they get past their stubbornness one day and are able to go back and enjoy this amazing series that we all love so much. What did you think about this video? I want to know if you've ever come in contact with a Gen 1er and what your experience is like. If you are a Gen 1er, tell me why, and tell me why you do not want to play the new games. And if you would like to play the new games, I have plenty of suggestions for you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what Pokemon content you want to see going forward. I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. Don't forget, I'm Real Mama Eagle on every single social media platform, and I do live streams on Twitch at twitch.tv/RealMamaEagle. Have a great day.